That was beautiful. For the Unitarian Universalist minister, December presents a special dilemma. So we just finished Hanukkah a few weeks ago. Today is the fourth Sunday of Advent, and Tuesday is the winter solstice. Christmas Eve and Christmas follow, and then comes the uniquely African-American holiday Kwanzaa. There's a lot to celebrate as a faith that connects multiple sources of wisdom in December. The connections between Christmas, solstice, and Hanukkah are at once historical, cultural, and grounded in the natural world. Earth-centered religions have celebrated the winter solstice for millennia. The winter solstice, as I'm sure you know, is the shortest day of the year, the day when there is the least amount of daylight between sunrise and sunsets. It represents the official beginning of winter and the gradual returning of the sun. And as Amy Taylor shared with me, it is a reminder that rebirth always follows darkness. So how clever, or maybe it was manipulative, that the early Christians co-opted the solstice to recruit pagan converts to celebrate Jesus's birth. Of course, no one knows the date of Jesus's birth, but just prior to Constantine's rule in the 4th century, December 25th was declared the, quote, birthday of the unconquered sun. That was spelled S-U-N. The Romans celebrated Saturnalia for a week, including the winter solstice, and they paid homage to Mithra, the ancient Persian god of light. So in the late 4th century, Christian rulers then selected that same December 25th date as Jesus's birthday. Quite literally, the birthday of the unconquered sun, spelled S-O-N. And then they added Christian meanings to the existing pagan traditions. So holly, ivy, mistletoe, the Yule log, evergreens were all part of those Christian pagan, pre-Christian pagan festivities, and we continue to use them today. Even the most conservative Christian homes have holly, ivy, mistletoe, and greens. You think they might be horrified to know they're embracing pagan traditions? So Christmas as the day to celebrate Jesus's birth actually took centuries to catch on. It wasn't celebrated in Jerusalem until the 7th century, and it wasn't celebrated in other parts of Europe until the 11th century. You may not know, in 1647, the English Parliament abolished Christmas. And the Puritans in America, when they came, didn't celebrate Christmas at all. I was surprised to learn that it wasn't until 1870, just 150 years ago, that Christmas became a federal holiday. Those of you who are newer to our faith, Unitarian Universalism, may not know the important roles that Unitarians did in bringing Christmas traditions to America. So the first Christmas tree, that was the Reverend Charles Fallon, who you heard about last week, who brought a Christmas tree inside his home in Lexington, Massachusetts, and encouraged his Unitarian congregation to do so as well. Did you know that Unitarian ministers wrote Jingle Bells and it came upon a midnight clear? And even earlier than that, Charles Dickens of Scrooge and Tiny Tim fame, he was an English Unitarian. Now, if we think about the solstice is actually, I think, as Unitarian Universalists, calling us to take some moments before next week's Christmas festivities to ponder our place in the larger world. Solstice reminds us to honor the rhythm of our days and that the earth turns of its own accord. Solstice brings us the longest night and the shortest day, but more importantly, the promise that the sun will again return. Now, I want to remind all of you that pagan practice is affirmed in our faith. Our 6 sources include, quote, the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which move us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. That direct experience is at the heart of what many know as Celtic spirituality. Celtic spirituality is a form of Christianity that began in the 5th and 6th century when the Roman Church entered Ireland and Scotland. Patrick and Columba melded the stories of Jesus and the mandates of Rome with those local pagan traditions. Today, Celtic spirituality represents exploring the best of the early pagan world of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Reverend Josephine, an Episcopal priest, writes on her blog, Crazy Whole Life, quote, "The faiths of our ancestors hold an appeal. They call out to our deep human need for mystery, for something bigger than ourselves, for the world to not be so cut and dried. And those instincts are good and right because the world is bigger than a list of rules. The world we inhabit is mysterious, awe-inspiring, and interconnected in ways we cannot begin to imagine." One of the Celtic and pagan emphasis is on daily blessings. Poet John O'Donoghue writes, "In the Celtic tradition, there's a great tradition of blessing. Because it was primarily an oral tradition, these blessings were learned by heart and handed on from one generation to the next. There are blessings for every possible occasion, and I highly recommend his book of blessings to you." I love this quote, though, that I found from Mary Megan, the founder of an organization that leads Celtic pilgrimages to Ireland. She said, "What would it be like to start the day with a blessing, not our to-do list?" I'm going to say that again. What would it be like to start the day with a blessing, not our to-do list? So really think about it. How might our daily lives be different if we, when we woke, took the time to bless the day instead of looking at our phones or our to-do list? What might happen if we blessed our meals before we ate them? Or if we prayed like our Muslim neighbors or Celtic monks do at least 5 times a day, remembering to reach out to the sacred? Might we find a greater connection to the mystery if we made the space regularly to bless our days and each other? So this next week may feel stressful and sad and difficult. I know you've had a tradition here of a blue Christmas service acknowledging the complex feelings this season often brings. I know I'm feeling some of that sadness myself this year, and I want to invite you to reach out to the pastoral care team if you'd like to talk this week. But I want to share an idea. I always counsel the couples I'm about to marry that on their wedding day, they should ignore everything that will make them unhappy. So the flowers may come yellow when they ordered pink. It's still a perfect day. Aunt Elaine decides she's not coming. That's okay. The bridesmaid gets drunk. The flower girl rips off her dress. It will be a good laugh years later, and so on. I tell them their mantra for the day is everything is perfect. So how about we try that attitude as everything is perfect for these upcoming 2 weeks? No matter what happens, this holiday, these weeks are the way they should be. The roast burns, you didn't get the present you wanted, or the reaction to the present you bought for someone. Your aunt decides not to come, or you, as I will probably do, go to a movie and have Chinese food. Whatever happens, it is your 2021 holiday, and all is well. Frederick Buchner, the Presbyterian minister and author who I often quote, wrote this about Christmas many years ago. He said, "The lovely old carols played and replayed till their effect is like a dentist drill or a jackhammer. The banalities of the pulpit, the chilling commercialization of almost everything else, people spending money they cannot afford on presents you neither need nor want, the plastic tree, the Hallmark Virgin. Yet for all of our efforts, we've never quite managed to ruin it. That in itself is part of the miracle, a part you can see. Most of the miracle you can't see or don't." So miracles, my friends, miracles, that's where I think the truth stories of solstice, Christmas, and Hanukkah converge. The stories begin in the darkest of days. In a dark, poor manger, a teenage girl and her boyfriend deliver a child, scared, cold, and alone. In a temple defiled by those who would deny other people their right to religion, a space without light degraded by foreign images. On a day when the sun appears to have disappeared forever. We surely have all lived through our own dark days. But the promise of the December holidays, the truth stories are the everyday miracles, the ones you can't see and the ones you can. The baby who will be named Emmanuel, God is with us. The band of brothers that becomes an army of 6,000 and the drop of oil that lasts for 8 days. The return of the sun after the darkest day of the year. The miracle of our family and our friends, and the miracle that we're alive at all. The miracles that happen here, right here in this congregation, when you join your hearts and voices and efforts together, even when we have to do it on Zoom. The stories remind us that in the darkest day of winters, in the physical world or in the dark part of our souls, the tiniest light can with faith become brighter and stronger until the whole world is filled with light again. And that every human being, no matter how humble their beginnings, can indeed bless the entire world. May these last days of the holiday season be such a blessing to each of you. Amen. So may it be.